Hello, and welcome to the Saturday, April 25th meeting of TV Toastmasters Club 9523. We have a special meeting in store for you today, as this potentially could be our last meeting in a television studio at the Anderson Community Center. So today our theme is celebrating the history of TV Toastmasters. But don't worry, we're not going away. Stay tuned to find out where we're going to be meeting again soon. I'd like to welcome some guests today in our studio audience, Jason Goodall and Dilip Kamath. So thank you for joining us. Those looking in at home, you can find out more about our club by logging on to www.tvtoastmasters.com. And now I'd like to turn the meeting over to the Toastmaster of the Day, Mr. Rick Barron.
Thank you, Michelle. As the Toastmaster for today's meeting, it's my role to facilitate the transitions. We have basically three major portions of our meeting. The first is impromptu speaking, the second is prepared presentations, and the third is evaluations. And I have a big team of people that I get to draw upon to help make that happen. What I'd like to do is introduce the first person that you're going to see today on my team, and that is the word of the day. That will be Carol Kormelink. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our most welcome guest. The word of the day is fitting for our theme. It's farewell. Farewell is the noun. It's an act of parting or of marking someone's departure, and we are departing from the studio as we know it. The challenge is to use that word, farewell, anytime you're up here at the lectern. I will keep track of how many times the word of the day is being used, and I will also keep track of any ums, ahs, or other killer filler words. And if I hear some unique vocabulary, I'll also mention that in my report. So farewell, and Mr. Toastmaster.
Farewell, Carol. One of the portions of the meeting that I think is the most fun is what we call Tabletopics. Tabletopics is where we have an opportunity to practice our impromptu speaking. Ever been in that meeting when somebody turns to you and says, I don't know, Dilip, what do you think about this topic? And you have to prepare an answer immediately for something you were not ready to do. That's what Tabletopics helps us do. Helps us answer those questions that just come out of nowhere. And our Tabletopics master today is Emily Garrett. Emily?
Thank you. Today, in celebration of the history of TV Toastmasters, I thought I'd find out what other things have happened on April 25th. The rock group Wings disbanded on April 25th. Ken Griffey Jr. hit his 250th home run on April 25th. And the A's manager, Billy Martin, was restrained by umps from attacking a fan on April 25th. Another thing that happened on April 25th was the first use of the seeing eye dog in 1938. BJ, how do you think the seeing eye dog has changed the lives of blind people?
Hello Toastmasters and the viewing audience. It's a great honor to speak about seeing eye dogs because actually they have changed the lives of the blind to make them more mobile, to make them be able to get out in the cities and to have work and to get out among the public and be involved citizens. I think it's very interesting to see dogs in the public and wonder why there's a dog in a public building or in a public space. And when you notice, they are a helpful dog. There are dogs now that are being trained to help people with seizures. There are dogs being trained to help the blind And dogs are taking a very active role in helping adults get an opportunity to live full life expectancy, being able to participate in activities and group actions. So I really respect seeing eye dogs. I'll have to say, my dog is a German Shepherd, and she has not been trained for any special skills. But she is very smart. She knows everything I say, and she is an accomplished helper. She is a guard dog, and she does a very good job. German Shepherds like to have a job, and she is the guard dog in my home. So I have utmost respect for all dogs, and especially seeing eye dogs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another thing that happened on April 25th in 1990 was the Hubble Space Telescope being placed into orbit by the shuttle Discovery. Rich, what effect do you think the space program has had on our lives here on Earth?
I've only got 2 minutes. I've always loved space exploration. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut until I found out that glasses sort of are a disqualifier. Probably because G-forces drive them back through your brain or something. I don't know. But what effect has the space program had on our lives? Well, there's Tang. Everybody loves Tang, right? No, seriously, though. You can argue for some practical effects. We've learned a lot more about medicine just from studying the effect of weightlessness on astronauts. We've developed things like Teflon, originally created for the heat shields on the shuttle. Miniaturization of electronics was driven by the space program because, frankly, it's really crazy expensive to put stuff in orbit. It's like $10,000 per kilogram that you put into orbit. So the more you can pack into your kilogram, the more money you get the more bang for your buck, I guess. But I think there's more to it than just practical effects. You know, sure, I've got a pocket computer now that doubles as a phone and a music player that can do more than the computer I learned to program on. But space exploration isn't just about practical stuff. It's about that first time the astronauts looked back down at the Earth and didn't see border lines. Didn't see a world divided between east and west, or north and south, or black and white. They saw a single blue planet sitting there, inhabited by people who were walking across invisible lines or made up by human beings. It's about the first shot that we had from Voyager, when Carl Sagan turned it around in Saturn's orbit and took a picture of our planet as a single pixel, a mote of dust hanging in space, illuminated by a sunbeam. And it really showed us that we're a tiny, tiny place in the universe, and maybe we should be better to each other. I think that's the real value of space exploration. Mr. Toastmaster? Madam? Wrong person.
Thank you, Rich. I would have enjoyed hearing more of what you have to say about all that. On April 25th, 1956, Elvis Presley's Heartbreak Hotel went #1. Jason, what effect do you think Elvis had on the world?
Thank you. What effect did Elvis have on the world? Well, aside from great music, he left us a farewell. A way that when he had his final farewell, that's a way we will never ever want to go, pun intended. If you don't know, Elvis passed away on the same date and roughly around the same time, however not in the same manner as his mother. For those of you who don't know, that Elvis, he passed away on the commode. Yes. So, but the effect that Elvis had on music was obviously, he's the king. So that denotes he was obviously very good at it. And he was able to bring all styles of music together, from gospel to, I don't know if I would call his music rock and roll, but close enough. He was an individual that left a legacy with his daughter, still also in music. Thank you. Yeah, I don't really know much about Elvis per se, but at least his daughter did marry the king of pop, so the legacy did continue on. However, no children were born out of that union, thankfully. Sorry. Well, you know, never mind, I am a stand-up comedian tonight, and I'm trying to restrain myself considerably, considering the topic. And this is on television. Correct, right? Yeah, it's on television. So, at the end of the day, Elvis's legacy was, I believe, mild dancing and melodious melodies. Thank you so much. I don't know.
Great job, Jason. Thanks for getting up here, even though it's your first time visiting us. I think we can all agree that TV Toastmasters has had a great effect for all of us who have been members. I've only been a member a short time, but I have grown, I feel, considerably in the short time that I've been in this club, and we need to rock on. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Emily. As we say farewell to the impromptu portion of our meeting, we now move in to the prepared speeches. And our first speaker today is a very new member of TV Toastmasters, giving his very first speech, his icebreaker speech. This speech is the hardest, easiest speech he will ever give. I'd like to welcome Scott Farrell, partially around the world in 47 years, partially around the world in 47 years, Scott Farrell.
Thank you. My name is Scott Farrell, and to get to know me a little better today, you'll learn a little bit more about my family, since they've helped to shape the person that I am today, which is an avid international traveler. The travel bug within our family began when my dad took a job in Brussels, Belgium in 1964 for his job with P&G. Naturally, my mom and my two older brothers and sisters also went along. I hadn't arrived yet on the scene since I wasn't born. I missed a trip to England to see Buckingham Palace and Stonehenge. I missed trips to Spain, France, Italy, Greece, and Morocco, to name a few. I missed all these great experiences which would later help shape and develop a passion to travel abroad. I was born in September 1967, and the family returned back to Cincinnati the following summer. Throughout grade school and high school, I also continued to miss many trips abroad that my parents took. But I was able to work on some other skills like hosting and throwing parties at my parents' house while they were gone. I was also able to become a pretty good cook because I had to cook for myself. I honed my skills into being a pretty good soccer player, having played the sport for nearly 20 years. During college, I developed my personal, interpersonal and leadership skills after I had joined a social fraternity where I held such leadership positions as Rush Chairman and President. These skills helped shape me and get me into the consumer packaged goods industry, where I've had a pretty successful career for the last 25 years. After college, we started taking trips abroad every 2 years that my mom would plan. She was a travel agent, and she had been to roughly 140 countries out of the 200 countries that existed at the time. We planned trips every 2 years, and our first trip was to China after Christmas in 1991. At that time, there were more bicycles on the roads than there were cars. Since it was winter, the streets were actually lined with coal all along the sidewalks. The coal was used for heating as well as cooking. The smog from the pollution was unbearable, and it actually made our eyes burn by the end of the day. Made getting to happy hour kind of fun at the hotel. We saw Tiananmen Square and the Forbidden Palace. We even saw the Great Wall of China, but only for 30 minutes. Remember, it was winter. The Great Wall of China is in the mountains, and it was unbearably cold. Our trip to Turkey was one of the most intriguing trips we had taken because it was really a country that I knew so little about. I consider Turkey to be one of the most fascinating countries and one of the top 3 countries I'd ever been to due to its unique culture and diverse cities. The highlight of the trip was taking a hot air balloon in a region called Cappadocia. There were also 30 other hot air balloons in the sky for that morning. Cappadocia is known for its unique rock formations, which were the result of numerous volcanoes that occurred over the centuries. The early Christians actually hid from the Romans in these sandstone rocks since they could easily carve out caves, tunnels, and even some of the earliest Christian churches. All told, I've been to 25 countries, which is a lot by most standards. However, my brothers and sisters have been to anywhere from 50 to over 100 countries. While our parents have passed away, the great memories, stories, pictures, and artifacts from all over the world have helped inspire my siblings and I to continue to travel. We're off to Argentina and Brazil later next month, which I'm very excited about because it'll be my first trip to South America, so I get to mark off yet another continent. In closing, the travel bug is highly contagious, and I hope you all get a chance to catch it. But proceed with caution. Once you get it, you won't be able to get rid of it. And with that, I bid you a fond farewell. Mr. Toastmaster?
Thank you, Scott.
Name an effective political leader in history who couldn't speak well. There aren't any.
Because when it comes to a disease,
Freedom requires leadership, and leadership requires oratory. You have to speak to be heard.
I have a dream.
It's all about personal growth and guts.
Never give in. Never, never, never.
Welcome back to TV Toastmasters. Scott, that was a fabulous introduction. We now go from your 47-year journey to a 5-time repeat offender. Randy Rapin will be giving his 3rd speech out of the Competent Communication Manual titled, "It Took Me 5 Times." Randy Rapin, it took me 5 times.
Thank you.
It took me 5 times to figure out I can't work for somebody else. Okay. How many times have we said, I should have started that company. I should have started that job. I should have started that business. I should have done these things. It's been estimated that there's well over 250,000 companies, actually 600,000 companies start up every year. I'm of the opinion that there's close to 300 million people in the United States, and I'm of the opinion 250 million companies have not started, okay? These are the ideas that never got off the ground, the ones that said farewell. For me, 5 times was the charm. To draw your attention to the opportunities in your life, I'm going to tell you about a story of what I have accomplished. I have actually started 7 businesses. 7. In 1955, I started a business called Me Incorporated in Detroit, Michigan. Actually, Utica, Michigan. I deliver papers for the Detroit Times. Actually, I was subcontracted to my brother, okay? And we were delivering newspapers to the houses. And at one point in time, I actually purchased the route from him, okay? I can't remember exactly the amount, but I think I overpaid. And a small anecdote there, we had this one customer called the Lady in the Gray House. It was her and her husband. two things would happen. Number one, if you didn't have the paper there exactly at like, I think it was 4:35, she would call my mother, okay? Or if you got the paper there and her husband took it before she saw it, she would then call and say she didn't get her paper. So then we'd have to bring her another one, and my mother would just say, give her another one, don't worry about it, okay? It was hard work, up early. I ran my own pile accounting system. I don't know if you're familiar with pile accounting. That's where you put all the money in a pile in the beginning of the month, you take stuff out, and hopefully at the end of the month there's still money in the pile. The second was in 1973. I started a new branch for exotic rubber and plastics. And we basically were selling specialty packaging items to the chemical industry. Started from nothing. They brought me in off the street. They told me, hey, this is a great opportunity. I started it up and running. I got that job up and running for another company. We did such a great job that Dow Chemical asked us to open a branch up in Midland, Michigan. Second job, okay? Second job opportunity. In 1973, I opened the branch for exotic rubber and plastics in Midland, Michigan, selling specialty rubber and plastic components to the chemical industry. That was a good job. I liked that one. I had an unlimited expense account. Okay. Then at some point in time, I had to say farewell to that location because they asked me to open another location in Michigan, down here in Ohio. So in 1985, I opened a branch office of exotic rubber and plastics in Dayton, Ohio, and we were selling specialty items to the automotive industry. I worked there I was actually with Exotic for quite a few years, and when the owner of the company decided that I was not needed because the company was running so well, I said farewell to them. Then I opened a new division for another company called Linton Industries. At this point in time, I thought, I can do this, okay? So I started this company up. It took me a year and a half. We landed a $6 million contract. And the owner of the company said, farewell. That's when the bell went off. I had started 5 companies for other people. And 3 of those 5 companies were still in business. 4 of them were a success. I said, this is silly. Why don't I do it myself? So in 1995, I started RLT Industries, which has been in business for 20 years. I'm still in business, so it must be doing okay. Okay. The interesting thing about this is that as you start a new business, when it's your own business, you have more to invest, more time. Okay. You actually enjoy it more. You spend your time for you. You spend your time for your family. These are the things that make a difference in your life. I started to understand that these things in your life were important. It's the time, not the money that you were making. So I sacrificed some money, invested some time, and I put 20 years in. Then in 2015, I started my 7th company. Okay. The 7th company is RLT Live. RLT Live specializes in introducing basic asset management to the orthopedic industry. Been in business about 6 months. It hasn't failed yet. So I guess I'm doing something right. The fact that you're sitting in front of me at Toastmasters tells me that you want to succeed. The fact that you have probably walked a similar life. You started businesses inside other companies for other people, and you've been successful. I'm here to tell you it took me 5 times to realize that. If you've done it more than 3 times, you need to step out, make an investment in you and your family, and go ahead and start a company on your own. It's not the best thing in the world. It's not going to be easy. I'll tell you that if it was easy, anybody would do it. They also tell me there's a great race car driver says that if you're driving your car and everything's going good, you're basically not driving fast enough. You got to put the pedal to the metal and get a little bit tipsy. Okay? Your resource, there's plenty of books out there. There's plenty of resources to learn from. If you're committed, that will be your reward. Okay? Fear is the motivator, Okay? Not limiting you to action. Okay? And the two ways to guarantee failure is never compete or quit before you're done. I challenge all of you to make the decision in your life that's best for you and move forward. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Randy. What about you? Are you going to take Randy's challenge to get rid of your JOB? Say farewell, sayonara to the job, and become an entrepreneur? Think about it for a minute. We'll be back after this word from Toastmasters.
Thank you very much. And now for our next speaker, Stanley Glitchner.
Speaking in public doesn't have to be a death sentence. At Toastmasters, we can help you overcome your fears.
Welcome back. We now have our third prepared speech today. Our previous two speakers spoke from the Competent Communication Manual. There are many advanced manuals within Toastmasters that help us learn specific skills. This speaker will speak from the Special Occasions Manual, giving a roast, not of a specific person, but of our club. Carol Kormelink will present her topic, From Thought to Birth, of TV Toastmasters Advanced Club. Carol Kormelink, From Thought to Birth, of TV Toastmasters Advanced Club.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. The birth of TV Toastmasters came from Rick Davis. He is in the director room. It was his idea that it would be neat to film our meeting, and that was the birth of TV Toastmasters. Believe it or not, I have the agenda from the very first meeting of TV Toastmasters organizing on June 14th of 2000. It took us 3 years to get enough people to join. You have to have 20 members to join a club, to have a club. We would have, this was an advanced club. You had to have been through the manual. You had to have an educational achievement, and then you had to belong to another club. That was our two criteria for being a member of TV Toastmasters, and you also had to bring a decent tape. We taped on videotape, and you had to bring a decent videotape to get in. That was your initiation. And I wrote that one of the purposes of the club was have fun. While we're doing this, have fun. And we decided we'd have a 2-hour instead of a 3-hour meeting once a month. We started out once a month. I was the beginning treasurer. I have been treasurer of this club for 15 years because I kept the money. And to have the 20 members, we would have people, they would come, and then they get transferred out of town, and I have to give them their money back, and then we have more people. And when we grew to 10 members, in January of 2003, we only had 10 members. We had one more that joined, and he died in January of 2003. And I said, if we don't get this club chartered, we're never going to get chartered. And by golly, we put the pedal to the metal, and we started recruiting in earnest, and by May 21st, 2003, we had all 20 members and the paperwork sent to International, and we were a club. In looking at some of the 2003 videos that Rick has put on YouTube, the men actually wore suits when they spoke in the beginning. And you'll note how casual our modern dress has become. One of the charter members, Verna Gibson, she and I would have a popularity contest to see how many strangers said, I saw you on TV. Sometimes I'd win, sometimes she would win. Also, one thing I neglected to say, my niece, I always call her my niece, she's my cousin. Nikki Bishop, she worked with a professional with Channel 5, I believe it was, and she had skills that we could use, and she got a job at the studio and has been with them ever since. Our books are audited and every year, and we work from a budget that is approved at the beginning of the year. Every club is supposed to do that. Not many of them do. And we have had many firsts in this club. In fact, in 2005, Rick Davis shared a list of Toastmaster first. The very first Toastmaster was Joan of Arc. She was well toasted. Hippocrates, the Greek physician, he was the first counter. The first whitewash evaluation, we hate those kind that they don't give you any good feedback, that everything was wonderful. That was done by Tom Sawyer. The very first icebreaker was done by the captain of the Titanic. Mr. District 40 Toastmaster, as they call Joe Swirling, he quoted the first woman president, Helen Blanchard. It was a good old boys organization and for the first from 1924 until 1974, when Helen Blanchard in 2 years was the woman president, and she said, if you get out of Toastmasters everything you can get out of Toastmasters, you will never get out of Toastmasters. I have learned something from every member. Emily Garrett gives the most informative speeches on current events. For instance, the hacking of the computer records of the bulletin store, and her title was It's Okay Now. Rick Barron has shared his wife's passion for recruiting stray cats and dogs, finding forever homes for them, and appealed to the county commissioners to make this a no-kill county. Michelle Lewis gives fascinating speeches about her life. The trip to California with her sister, and she still loves her sister. Another one that was humorous, we laughed all the way through it, was Bleep Happens, about a race that she ran. Now we must say farewell to filming in a television studio and find a new way to film our meetings for community television and YouTube. Suggestions are welcome. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Carol.
Oh, and I even have the list of the first charter members. Oops, excuse me. Step on your toe.
Let's take 2 minutes for everybody to write some words of encouragement to our presenters today.
I'd like to begin tonight with a little joke. This guy, he's a farmer, and he says, hey, hello? Sorry. But seriously, folks.
Speaking in public is no joke.
Doctor says, chicken says...
For help, call Toastmasters, the public speaking support group.
The chicken...
Welcome back to our farewell episode of TV Toastmasters here in the Anderson Community Access Television Studio. We now transition from the prepared speeches to the evaluations. And here's where the growth happens in Toastmasters. Here's where we share what each of our speakers did well and give them a few ideas on how they might improve themselves next time. This team is led by a general evaluator. Our general evaluator for this meeting is Michelle Lewis.
As Vic mentioned, this is a very critical and most important learning portion of our meeting as we gain feedback on what we've done well and where we could potentially do better. I can't do this portion of the meeting without a team, and today I have a team of evaluators that will help give feedback to the speakers. That team will be Rick, he's going to evaluate for Scott, Rich, who will evaluate for Randy, and Rick Davis, who will evaluate for Carol. My team also consists of Carol, being the all counter and the grammarian, and BJ is the timer for today. So first I'd like to hand it over to Rick Barron to give an evaluation for Scott. Rick?
Thank you, Michelle. Scott, as I mentioned as Toastmaster, the hardest, easiest speech that you will ever give. Hardest because you had to physically get up here, deliver it in front of the lights, the cameras, and a real audience. The easiest is because you talked about the thing that you know the most, and that is yourself. You came up here comfortable, confident, and it was very clear that you've done this before. I didn't hear an ah or an We'll see what the ah counter and the grammarian came up with. You had notes, but you didn't read them. The majority of the people that are up here for the first time, it's like this. Hello, my name is Scott. I'm glad to see you today. That's how most icebreakers go. The notes were down here on the lectern. Occasionally you glance down at them. You use them as a guide rather than something that you read. Very advanced for somebody who's up here for their first time. What you did is you shared with us a little bit about you and your passion for travel. You had a chance to visit some incredible places, but you gave us some background, and we got to learn a little bit more about you. That you're a cook, that you're a soccer player, that you work in the consumer packaged goods business, you've been with a company for 25 years, that you've got other travel plans pending that you're looking forward to. Most icebreaker speeches focus only on a small portion of somebody's lives to make it easy for us to understand, and that's exactly what you did. Helped us understand your travel passion, but to bring in the rest of your life as well. I have two suggestions on something that you might do to improve in the future. The first is to share why you went to those locations. I know you went to China, I know you went to Turkey, I know you're looking forward to going to South America, but I think sharing why those locations were selected would help us learn a little bit more about you and what drives you inside. The second suggestion would be the opening. You came up here and you said, hi, my name is Scott, I'm here to, etc., etc. One technique that's very useful in an opening is to ask a question. For example, how many countries have you visited? And then pause. Allow them to think. And then come back and say, this is my story of the 25 countries that I've had the opportunity to visit in my lifetime. Ask a question, draw us in, then tell them what you're going to tell them. Very powerful technique for opening. Scott, you did a great job up here for an icebreaker. Once you see it on the tape, you've got a lot of reason to applaud yourself, the skills that you have, and what you're able to bring to this club. This is not just about you learning. This is about you teaching based on what I saw up here. Ms. General Evaluator?
Thank you. Rick always has such a way of evaluating, always giving such positive feedback using the sandwich method, which is something you do here at Toastmasters, where we start out with what somebody did very well, give some areas for improvement, and then always wrap up with something that the speaker did well. So fantastic evaluation, Rick. Our second evaluator today will be Rich Gant. He will be evaluating Randy. Rich, please come up to the lectern.
So if you've seen me speak, you'll know that my evaluation style is very much a do as I say, not as I do, please, not as I do style. All right, so let's start off with a few things I noticed that you could improve on, because really, they're not going to be anywhere near as bad as the way I wrote them down makes them sound. So let's get that out of the way now. Very early on in the speech, probably less than 30 seconds in, you had about a 6-second gap between sentences where it seemed like you'd lost your place or rereading your notes frantically trying to figure out where you were at. And in a speech that's 5 to 7 minutes long, 6 seconds is it's a huge feeling space. And if it had been a deliberate, you'd asked a question, we're waiting for an answer, that would have been good. If you're looking for your note, if you're looking for where you're at in your notes, that's horrendous. So maybe just, and it only happened in the opening. Once you got into your speech, you were very enthusiastic, you knew exactly where you're at. I don't think you looked at your notes for 5 minutes. But just it seems like maybe practicing that opening part of the speech a little bit more would be key, because that was the part that you struggled with. I can't read my own handwriting here, so good luck deciphering what I scrawled. Let's see here. Oh, you also, there was a bit of a tendency at the beginning and the end to be looking down at your notes far more than you're looking out at the audience. Again, a do as I say, not as I do moment. Now let's get to what I thought was good, because you did a lot of great things. First of all, you had a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm. It was obvious that this was something you were very passionate about, that you really wanted to drive home the idea that working for yourself is a much better idea than working for someone else, particularly if you're opening companies for a living. Why not do it for yourself? You had a lot of enthusiasm. You got in there, you're gesturing with your hands, emphasizing things. A lot of speakers, and myself included, in the early speeches, do this with their hands. I am braced. I will not speak anymore. I will not move from this spot. I am safe behind the lectern. No, you were kind of moving just a little bit, but enough to keep it interesting. Gestures, really emphasizing the point that this is something you're passionate about and enthusiastic about. And I love the way you brought that passion through. Also, I've got to say I loved pile accounting. I loved that name. I think far too many of us are probably guilty of doing that even as grown-ups. And you had a very strong opening. I forgot to write down exactly what it was, but it just jumped right out and said, hi, I'm going to tell you why you want to work for yourself. It gave you the entire point of the speech right in one sentence. And then everything else just built on that, emphasized why it was important, what experience you had, and then brought it home. Do more of that. Keep that up. I think it was great. Madam Toastmaster? Madam Evaluator? Toastmaster? I can't talk today.
That's okay. We all get a little tongue-tied every now and again. Thank you, Rich. I'd like to now ask Rick Davis to come and give his evaluation of Carol's roast of TV Toastmasters.
Thank you, Michelle. So this is out of the Special Occasion Manual, Special Occasion Speeches. The objectives of the speech are to poke fun at a particular individual in a good-natured way, adapt and personalize humorous material from other sources, deliver jokes and humorous stories effectively. And Carol was very successful. She did what most comedians do, which is steal material from other people, from me. Very effective. She found some good stuff. She went back and looked at old TV Toastmaster videos. That takes some effort to go back and watch. When we had a single camera, we were all staring into a single camera. You had good vocal variety. What I really enjoyed were the memories that you brought up, and I remember that the first 3 years we weren't sure after 3 years that it was the things were working, and then we made a big push and we were able to get everything done. Of course, the big thing was my photo. When you showed my photo, I think you should have held it up a little bit longer. You're very confident. The only thing I suggest is that this should have been a regular speech, so it should have had a nice beginning, a middle, and an end, and I didn't get that feeling that you'd really thought that out in your head. So I think if you do this over again in the future, think about in terms of an introduction and a middle and then a conclusion, and I think that would be really, really effective. Other than that, you can steal my jokes anytime, Carol. Madam General Evaluator.
Thanks, Rick. Rick, that's a compliment. You have such funny materials. So we all want to steal that. All right, and next I'm going to ask Carol Kormelink, our all-counter and grammarian, to come up and give feedback to the speakers today.
Thank you very much. I like the use of the word of the day, farewell. Rick Barron, I counted at least 4 times. I've used it 3 times that I remember, 4 times maybe. Who else used it? In the counting the ums and the ahs, I haven't heard Rick say any ums and ahs yet. He is very good at that, at not saying that. No killer filler words. The word that I liked of when Emily got up to do her table topics was rock on. BJ, I only heard 2 so's and 2 ands when you answered your table topics. Rich, I heard 1 you know, 1 so, 5, 10, 15 us, and 2 words of the day. And I like the word you used, commode. Jason. No, it was sorry, that was Jason's. I had it by you, but it was Jason that did all that. For your first time up, that was pretty good that you didn't have many more than that. Rich, all I heard was 2 us, 1 but, and 1 and in your table topics. For the first speaker, Scott, in your first one, very good. You didn't start out with many, but you added them periodically. 7 us, 1 lip smack, that's when you end a sentence. 1 word of the day, that's all I had for you there. For Randy, in your speech I heard 11 okays. When you end a sentence, say okay. I heard 2 us, 4 words of the day, 5 so's, and 1 lip smack, which was very good for your third speech. For me, I used the word of the day once, and of course I didn't count my ums and ahs. Michelle, in your general evaluator, I haven't heard you say any ums and ahs. Scott, I wrote what I liked about your evaluation of what was helpful. I didn't hear any ums and ahs there. Randy, when Rich was giving Rick Barron was the one I didn't hear any ums and ahs, and when Rich was giving his evaluation for Randy, you had only 3 us, 2 so's, and I liked your word horrendous that you used. Rick Davis, I didn't hear any ums and ahs. I was listening to the evaluation since it was of me. That is my grammarian report for the day. We did well in using the word of the day, farewell.
Thank you, Carol. Carol always gives very thorough evaluations, and Carol is also the only one that tracks lip smacks. So you will hear about your lip smacks if you do that from Carol. I'm now going to invite BJ to come up and talk about our timing for today.
Thank you. Hello, Toastmasters. I'm glad to give the timing report for today. So in table topics, for the people who were supposed to speak 2 to 3 minutes, I spoke for 1 minute and 23 seconds about seeing eye dogs. The next speaker was Rich about space, and he spoke for 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And Jason spoke for 1 minute and 47 seconds. So we all did very well in table topics. Now in the prepared speeches, Scott was supposed to speak 4 to 6 minutes about his travel, and he spoke 4 minutes and 29 seconds, right on target. Randy was giving a speech about 5 minutes to 7 minutes and talked to us about starting his own company, and he spoke for 7 minutes and 11 seconds, still within the time frame, giving the grace period, seconds at the end. And Carol was speaking for 3 to 5 minutes, very interesting topic about her roast, and she spoke 5 minutes and 42 seconds. Okay, so I also timed the evaluations, and the evaluations are supposed to be between 2 and 3 minutes. So Rick Barron evaluated for 3 minutes and 21 seconds, and Rich evaluated for 3 minutes and 13 seconds. And Rick Davis, very interesting evaluation, but only took 1 minute and 35 seconds. That's my report for today. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
As general evaluator, it's also my duty to give some feedback of the meeting today. So I wanted to say what an awesome job we did getting started on time. I think this is probably the most punctual we've ever been. We're actually going to be wrapped up before 10:10 today, which usually we're lingering around 10:30, 11 o'clock. So fantastic job on that today. Really relevant word of the day, so I like Carol's selection for word of the day. And I like that the guest, one of our guests was included today in the Tabletopics. A couple of things. Rick, great evaluation of Scott. One thing I don't know if you mentioned was his eye contact. I thought you had really good eye contact. If you mentioned it, I apologize, I didn't hear that. But that's one thing I wanted to point out. Great eye contact today. Rich, very good, thorough evaluation of Randy. Potentially you could have challenged him to not use his notes the next time. That may be a thought. Maybe next time try to take that bold challenge and come up here without notes. Rick, fantastic evaluation. I like how you pointed out Carol's structure of her speech, so fantastic job on that. Dilip didn't get an opportunity to speak today, and usually we try to include everyone, so I'm going to ask him to come up and just say what your thoughts are about the meeting. It's been a while since you've been here, so we always like to get our guests to have comments, so welcome, Dilip.
Thanks, Michelle. First of all, wonderful to see you all here. When I got this email from Rick that this is going to be a farewell meeting, I honestly tried to ignore it. And it's so liberating to tell the honesty. And then a funny thing happened. On Wednesday, I got a call from my leadership to come and join United Nations World Bank in Washington, D.C., and talk to a small group of people. So Thursday when I went there, it was an auditorium with about 85 people. Small group. And my legs were giving away. There were so many butterflies in my stomach that made me feel like a rainforest. But I got it together. And that is when I realized the power of Toastmasters and what it did to me and how it changed what I'm about to do. So I spoke to the team for about 35, 40 minutes. I had some material with me. And when I was coming back on the flight, I realized how thankful I am to Toastmasters and how it changed who I am today. I was feeling comfortable in my skin. I wasn't worried about my accent or the way I was delivering my speech. But now I knew the power that I can deliver a message and tell what I feel about any topic I could. So thank you for the opportunity that you all have given me here to learn and deliver. And in my farewell, I would say this: don't cry for that it is ending, but smile that it happened. Thank you all.
And that wasn't planned, and that was a wonderful way to end a farewell meeting. We are limited to our time today, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up for Rick, but let's give a round of applause for our Toastmaster today, Rick Barron. And thank you all for looking in. Thank you for our guests today. Thank you for the participation. The good news is we are going to try to keep rocking on, as Emily said, and we are going to hopefully find a new location to meet. So to find out more details about that, you can log on to www.tvtoastmasters.com. And I'm going to conclude the meeting today of April 25th of TV Toastmasters.